The alert came at the worst possible time. Council Administrator Telvan was in the middle of his rest cycle when his communication device began flashing the urgent red pattern that meant something important had happened. He pulled himself up from his sleeping platform and touched the device with one of his 4 manipulator limbs. "This better be worth waking me," he said into the receiver. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," came the voice of his assistant. "The scout vessel Morning Light has found something in the Orion Spur. Something big." Telvan felt his 2 hearts begin to beat faster. The Orion Spur was one of the last unexplored regions of the galaxy. For 50,000 years, automated scout vessels had been mapping every system, every planet, every asteroid. The job was almost complete. What could possibly be left to find that would justify an urgent wake-up call? "Send me the data," Telvan said. The holographic display activated above his communication device. Telvan stared at the information scrolling past his eyes. At first, it seemed routine. A yellow star. 8 planets. Several moons. Nothing unusual. Then he saw the 3rd planet's data, and his breathing stopped. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Liquid water covering most of the surface. Radio wave emissions. Artificial satellite signatures. Complex chemical pollutants, indicating industrial activity. And most shocking of all, genetic markers that matched the ancient colony worlds. "By the ancestors," Telvan whispered. "They found it. They actually found Earth." Within 2 standard hours, Telvan stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from 800 member species. Today, every seat was filled. News of the discovery had spread through the communication networks like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know if the legends were true. Council Speaker Moravith called the session to order. She was a Velnari, a species known for their patience and wisdom. She had held her position for 300 years, longer than most species lived. Her voice carried the weight of authority. "Administrator Telvan has called this emergency session," Moravith announced. "He claims the scout vessel has found the mythical homeworld of humanity. We will now review the evidence." End quote. Telvan stepped forward and activated the main display. The image of Earth appeared, floating above the council floor. It was a beautiful planet, covered in blue oceans and white clouds. Green and brown continents were visible beneath the atmospheric layer. "This is the planet the ancient records call Earth," Telvan began. "Located in the Orion Spur, exactly where the old maps suggested it would be. Our automated probe has been observing the planet for 3 standard days. What we have discovered is both amazing and disturbing." He brought up the next set of images. Cities glowed on the night side of the planet. Vast agricultural areas covered the continents. Ships moved across the oceans. Aircraft flew through the atmosphere. "The planet is inhabited," Telvan continued, "by humans. Billions of them. They have developed a technological civilization without any contact with the galactic community. They have discovered electricity, built computers, developed chemical rockets, and achieved nuclear fission." A wave of shocked sounds filled the chamber. Representatives turned to each other, speaking rapidly in dozens of different languages. The translation systems worked overtime to keep up with the sudden explosion of conversation. "Impossible," someone shouted from the upper levels. "No species develops that quickly without guidance." "The evidence is clear," Telvan replied. He brought up more data. "We have performed genetic analysis on biological samples collected by the probe's remote systems. The humans of Earth are genetically identical to the populations of 47 established colony worlds. There is no doubt. This is the source world." Moravith raised one of her long arms, calling for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. "If this is true," she said slowly, "then we face an unprecedented situation. According to our historical records, the ancient humans fled Earth approximately 70,000 years ago. They seeded colony worlds throughout this region of the galaxy and then vanished. We assumed they had destroyed themselves or fallen victim to some catastrophe. But now, you tell us they survived on their homeworld? Not only survived, Telvan said. They thrived. They rebuilt. And they did it completely alone, with no memory of their time among the stars. A Kazathi delegate stood up. The Kazathi were a warrior species, large and covered in thick scales. Their voice was deep and intimidating. What weapons do they possess? The Kazathi asked. Are they a threat? Telvan hesitated. They have nuclear weapons. Thousands of them. Enough to destroy all life on their planet several times over. The chamber erupted again. Nuclear weapons were strictly controlled in galactic space. Only a handful of species were permitted to maintain them, and only under the most careful supervision. The idea that an unknown species had developed them independently was terrifying to many of the delegates. They must be contained, someone shouted. Quarantined until they evolve beyond such dangerous technology. That could take thousands of years, another voice argued. We cannot ignore them for that long. What if they develop faster than light travel? A third delegate asked. Moravith called for silence again. This time it took longer for the chamber to settle. We will send a delegation, she announced. A proper first contact mission. We will meet these humans and determine their intentions and capabilities. Only then can we decide how to proceed. Who will lead this mission? The Kazathi delegate asked. Moravith thought for a moment. We will send the Harmonious Endeavor. Captain Zira has more first contact experience than anyone else in the fleet. If anyone can handle this delicate situation, it is her. The vote was called. Despite the controversy, the decision passed overwhelmingly. The galaxy would make first contact with humanity. Captain Zira received her orders 3 hours later. She stood on the bridge of the Harmonious Endeavor, reading through the mission briefing with growing concern. The ship was the finest first contact vessel in the fleet, equipped with the most advanced communication systems and cultural databases. Her crew represented 12 different species, each chosen for their diplomatic skills and ability to work together. This is going to be complicated, her first officer said. He was a Trinali, a species known for their analytical thinking. Humans are unpredictable, according to the historical records. All species are unpredictable when you first meet them, Zira replied. She was a Velnari, like Speaker Moravith, though much younger. She had conducted first contact with 43 species during her career. Each one had been unique. Each one had taught her something new. But this was different. This was not a newly evolved species taking their first steps toward civilization. This was an ancient species that had once traveled the stars, lost everything, and rebuilt from nothing. What would they be like after 70,000 years of isolation? Set course for Earth, Zira ordered. Maximum speed. And broadcast our intentions on all frequencies. I want them to know we are coming in peace. The journey took 6 standard days. During that time, Zira and her crew studied everything they could find about ancient humanity. The records were incomplete, pieced together from archaeological sites on dozens of worlds. They painted a picture of a species that was creative, aggressive, curious, and surprisingly emotional. One record described how ancient humans had formed strong bonds with other species, treating them as family, even when there was no genetic connection. Another told of human merchants who would travel for months to deliver a single package to a friend. There were stories of human warriors who refused to retreat even when victory was impossible, and human scientists who would dedicate their entire lives to solving a single problem. They sound exhausting, the communications officer said after reading through the files. They sound interesting, Zira corrected. Remember, these are our colleagues' ancestors. The colony worlds were founded by these people. Treat this mission with the respect it deserves. As they approached Earth's solar system, the sensors began picking up more detailed information. The planet was even more developed than the initial probe had suggested. Thousands of satellites orbited the world. Space stations circled in various orbital paths. There were even signs of activity on Earth's moon, though no permanent settlements. They have been busy, the tactical officer observed. Then something unexpected happened. A proximity alarm sounded. The Harmonious Endeavor's defensive systems activated automatically. Report, Zeta ordered. We have been scanned by an automated defense system, the tactical officer said. It is tracking our approach vector. A defense system? Zira felt a chill run through her body. They have weapons in orbit? Zira? Apparently. And they are quite sophisticated. The scanning beam used technology I have not seen before. Before Zira could respond, a new signal came through the communication system. It was audio only, transmitted in what the computer identified as English, one of Earth's major languages. Unidentified vessel, this is Earth Orbital Defense Network. Please state your intentions and hold your current position while we establish diplomatic channels. The crew stared at each other in shock. They were being told to wait. By a species that had never made contact with alien life before. By a defense system that should not exist. Zira cleared her throat and activated the translation system. This is Captain Zira of the Galactic Council ship Harmonious Endeavor. We come in peace to establish first contact with the people of Earth. We will hold position as requested. There was a pause. Then the voice came back, sounding almost cheerful. Acknowledged, Harmonious Endeavor. Please stand by. We are waking up some people who are going to be very excited to talk to you. This might take a few minutes. Can we offer you anything while you wait? Do you need any assistance with your ship systems? Zira looked at her crew. They all seemed as confused as she felt. In all her years of first contact, no species had ever asked if she needed anything before they even met. No assistance is necessary, Zira replied. We will wait. Great. Someone will be with you shortly. Welcome to Earth's neighborhood. The communication cut off. Zira sat down in her command chair, feeling slightly dizzy. What just happened? The first officer asked. I have no idea, Zira admitted. While they waited, more and more human ships appeared on the sensors. Small craft, probably meant for local orbital work, larger vessels that might be cargo carriers. Everything moved with purpose and coordination, following traffic patterns that suggested a well-organized space infrastructure. How long have they been spacefaring? Someone asked. The computer provided the answer. Based on historical radio transmissions, humans achieved their first successful orbital flight approximately 100 years ago. 100 years? Zira repeated. And they have built all of this in 100 years? The science officer checked the data twice to make sure it was correct. That appears to be accurate, Captain. Zira felt a strange mixture of emotions. Humans had gone from their first orbital flight to a complex network of satellites, stations, and defense systems in just 1 century. That was impossibly fast. Most species took at least 1,000 years to achieve similar development. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the live transmission of the event. Every news network carried the story. Every social platform discussed it. First contact with Earth was the biggest event in living memory. On the colony worlds founded by ancient humans, people watched with special interest. These were their distant ancestors, their genetic cousins. What would they be like? Would they remember the old ways? Would they claim kinship with the colonies? In government chambers on 1,000 worlds, officials worried about the implications. If Earth was the legitimate homeworld of 47 colony populations, did that give them special legal status? Could they make territorial claims? Would the old treaties still apply? But most people just felt excited. After 50,000 years of searching, the source of one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries had been found. The humans of Earth had survived, thrived, and built something remarkable. Now everyone would finally get to meet them. On the bridge of the Harmonious Endeavor, Captain Zira waited. She had no idea what to expect when the humans finally responded. She had no way of knowing that nothing in her extensive first contact training had prepared her for what was about to happen. The humans were about to introduce themselves to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. The wait lasted exactly 47 minutes. Captain Zira spent that time reviewing first contact protocols and trying to calm her nervous crew. Every few minutes, someone would report another human vessel moving into position around them. Not threatening positions, just observing. It was like being watched by curious children. Finally, the communication system activated again. This time, a video feed accompanied the audio. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a female, Zira thought. Based on the ancient records, she had dark skin and short black hair. Her face showed the kind of expression the database identified as a smile. Captain Zira, hello. My name is Ambassador Chen Wei. I apologize for the delay. Your arrival was a bit unexpected, and we needed to coordinate with multiple governments. I hope you understand. Zira noticed something odd. The human was speaking English, but she seemed to understand that the harmonious endeavor had translation systems. She spoke slowly and clearly, pausing between sentences to allow for processing time. Ambassador Chen, thank you for responding, Zira said. We understand that our arrival must be shocking. We come with peaceful intentions to establish diplomatic relations with your people. Well, you have certainly made our year interesting, Chen replied, her smile growing wider. We have been hoping for this day for a long time. We always suspected we were not alone in the universe. But having you show up in our orbit is still quite amazing. Would you like to come aboard our station? We have prepared a reception area that should accommodate your crew's needs. A reception? Zira was confused. You have prepared facilities for us already? Zero. We have been monitoring your approach for the past 2 days, Chen explained. We used that time to set up a proper meeting space. We were not sure what environmental conditions you might need, so we created several different chambers with adjustable atmospheres, gravity, and temperature. We also prepared food and refreshments, though we admit we have no idea what you eat. We just made as many options as possible and figured you could tell us what works. Zira glanced at her first officer. He looked as surprised as she felt. In her experience, newly contacted species were either terrified or aggressive when first encountering aliens. None had ever prepared a reception with multiple environmental chambers and food options. That is very thoughtful, Zira said carefully. We accept your invitation. Please transmit docking coordinates. Transmitting now. And Captain, please let us know if you need anything at all. We want to make sure you are comfortable. The coordinates arrived, directing them to a large space station in high orbit. As the harmonious endeavor approached, Zira got a better look at the structure. It was not a military installation or a government facility. According to the identification beacon, it belonged to something called Stellar Horizons Corporation. A corporation, the first officer said. Private individuals own this station? Apparently, Zira replied. The concept was strange. In most civilized societies, space infrastructure was controlled by governments or collective organizations. The idea that individuals could own orbital facilities was unusual. The docking procedure went smoothly. Human technicians guided them in with professional efficiency. When the airlock finally opened, Ambassador Chen was waiting on the other side, along with a dozen other humans. Zira stepped through first, followed by her crew. She stood nearly 2 meters tall, with 4 arms and pale blue skin. Her first officer was even more unusual looking, with multiple sensory organs and a body shape that humans would find very alien. Behind them came representatives from 10 other species, each with their own unique biology. The humans stared. Zira had expected that. But what she had not expected was the look of pure excitement on their faces. Several of them were smiling so widely, it looked almost painful. One young male human was actually bouncing slightly on his feet. This is incredible, Chen said, extending one hand in the traditional human greeting gesture. Welcome to Stellar Horizons Station. Welcome to Earth's neighborhood. Welcome to what we hope will be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Zira carefully reached out with one of her 4 hands and grasped the human's hand. Chen's grip was firm but not aggressive. Warm. The physical contact felt surprisingly natural. Thank you for receiving us, Zira said. The pleasure is entirely ours, Chen replied. Please, follow me. We have set up a reception hall. I apologize if anything seems strange. We have only seen aliens in our movies and television shows before, so we are working from imagination rather than experience. As they walked through the station corridors, Zira observed everything carefully. The station was clean and well-maintained. Humans moved through the corridors with purpose, but many stopped to stare at the alien visitors. Some waved. Others held up devices that appeared to be cameras, recording the moment. Are they not afraid? Zira asked quietly. Afraid? Chen looked confused. Why would we be afraid? You traveled across the galaxy to meet us peacefully. That seems like something to celebrate, not fear. They entered a large chamber that had been converted into a reception hall. Tables were arranged around the room, covered with food and drinks. The environmental systems had been modified to create several different atmospheric zones, each marked with clear signage. Chairs and platforms of various sizes and shapes were scattered throughout the space. We were not sure about furniture, Chen admitted, so we just provided as many options as we could think of. Please, make yourselves comfortable. The food is all vegetarian or synthetic. We did not want to risk offending anyone by serving meat. There are also several types of drinks, ranging from water to various chemical compounds we thought might be nutritious for different biologies. Zira's science officer stepped forward and began scanning the food with a handheld device. After a moment, he looked up in surprise. This is safe, he said. At least for most of our species. They have actually analyzed potential alien biochemistries and created appropriate nutritional options. We did our best, Chen said modestly. We have only had 2 days to prepare, so I am sure we made mistakes. Please let us know if anything is wrong, and we will fix it immediately. The crew spread out through the chamber, examining the food and furniture with curiosity. Zira watched as the Kazathi war delegate, Commander Throck, carefully approached one of the tables. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in thick armored scales. His species was feared throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. A small human child suddenly ran up to Throck. She could not have been more than 5 or 6 years old. She stopped directly in front of the enormous alien and looked up at him with wide eyes. Are you a dragon? The child asked. Throck stared down at the small creature. He had fought in wars. He had commanded fleets. He had never been more uncertain of what to do than he was at this moment. I do not know what a dragon is, Throck rumbled in his deep voice. They are from stories, the child explained. They have scales like you. Can I touch your scales? They look pretty. A female human rushed over and grabbed the child's hand. May. You cannot just run up to people and ask to touch them. I am so sorry, she said to Throck. She is at that age where everything is interesting, and nothing is dangerous. You do not punish her for approaching me? Throck asked. Punish her? The woman looked confused. She is curious. Curiosity should be encouraged, not punished. Though maybe with better manners. Throck knelt down slowly, bringing his massive head closer to the child's level. You may touch my scales, he said softly, but carefully. They are sharp. The child reached out with tiny fingers and gently touched the scales on Throck's arm. Her face lit up with joy. They are smooth and warm, she said. Thank you, Mr. Dragon. Throck felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. He realized with shock that he found this small, fragile creature delightful. Across the room, other interactions were happening. The communications officer was engaged in a deep conversation with a human scientist about language and translation. The medical officer was comparing notes with a human doctor about different biological systems. The engineer was admiring the station's life support systems with a human technician. Ambassador Chen approached Zira with 2 glasses in her hands. I thought you might like to try this, Chen said, offering one of the glasses. It is a drink we call tea. Very mild. Our analysis suggested it should be safe for your biology. But please scan it first, if you prefer. Zira took the glass and carefully tasted the liquid. It was warm, and had a subtle flavor that was actually quite pleasant. This is good, Zira said. I am glad, Chen replied. She took a sip of her own tea. Captain, I should probably explain something about how we do things here on Earth. We are not a unified government. We have 197 different nations, each with its own laws and customs. It makes things complicated sometimes. You are not unified? Zira was shocked. How do you make decisions? How do you manage resources? With difficulty. Chen admitted with a laugh. We argue a lot. We have different ideas about how things should work. But we also cooperate when it matters. The United Nations is our attempt at a global organization. It is not perfect, but it helps us work together. This is highly unusual, Zira said. Most species unify their governments before achieving space travel. We have never been very good at doing things the usual way, Chen said. But it works for us. Or at least, it works well enough. Now, I should warn you that when news of your arrival becomes public, you are going to receive a lot of attention. Humans are very curious, and there are a lot of us. Over 8 billion, at last count. 8 billion? Zira felt dizzy. That was more than many entire species in the galactic community. I know it seems like a lot, Chen said. We have been working on managing our population growth and resource use. We are getting better at it. Slowly, over the next several hours, the reception continued. More humans arrived, representing different nations and organizations. Scientists wanted to discuss technology. Artists wanted to share cultural works. Politicians wanted to establish diplomatic frameworks. Everyone was excited, curious, and welcoming. Zira found herself relaxing despite her initial concerns. The humans were strange, certainly. They were loud and emotional. They argued with each other even in front of alien visitors. They asked too many questions and did not always respect personal space. They seemed to have no sense of proper protocol, but they were also genuinely kind. They went out of their way to make the alien visitors comfortable. They shared their food and knowledge freely. They treated the first contact event not as a negotiation, but as a celebration. At one point, a human musician set up instruments and began playing something called jazz. The music was complex and emotional, filled with improvisation and energy. Several humans began moving rhythmically to the music, a behavior the database identified as dancing. You dance at diplomatic events? Zira asked Chen. We dance at most events, Chen replied. Music and movement are important to us. They help us express emotions and connect with each other. Would you like to try? I do not know how, Zira admitted. Neither do most of us, Chen said with a laugh. We just move, however. Feels right. There are no rules. Watching the humans dance, Zira realized something important. These people did not approach life with the careful calculation and planning that most galactic species used. They were spontaneous, creative, and willing to try things without knowing the outcome. It made them unpredictable, but it also made them vibrant and alive in a way she had rarely encountered. Commander Throck approached Zira, still followed by the small human child who had declared him her new friend. These humans are dangerous, Throck said quietly. Zira tensed. You sense a threat? No, Throck replied. They are dangerous because they make you care about them. I have been a warrior for 300 years. I have never worried about anyone outside my own species. But if something threatened this child, I would protect her. They do this to you somehow. They make you part of their circle without you even realizing it. Zira looked around the room at the humans laughing, talking, sharing food and ideas with aliens they had just met. She understood what Throck meant. There was something about humanity that broke down barriers and created connections. Perhaps that is what happened before, Zira said slowly. Perhaps that is why the ancient humans had friends throughout the galaxy. Not because they conquered or intimidated, but because they made others care. Well do and see. When the Clanton, well see, a dangerous ability, Throck repeated. But he was gently showing the child how to draw patterns on his scales with her finger. His fearsome face arranged in what might have been a smile. As the reception finally wound down, Ambassador Chen approached Zira one last time. Captain, I have to ask, why now? Why did you come looking for us? We found you by accident, Zira admitted. An automated scout vessel detected your world. We have been searching this region of space for 50,000 years. We were beginning to think we would never find Earth. 50,000 years, Chen repeated softly. That is how long we have been alone. According to our records, yes. Your ancestors left Earth and seeded colony worlds throughout the galaxy. Then, they disappeared. We have been trying to solve that mystery ever since. And now you have found us, Chen said. What happens next? That is partly up to you, Zira said. But I must be honest, Ambassador. There will be controversy. Your world has developed technologies that are considered dangerous by galactic standards. You have nuclear weapons, genetic modification, artificial intelligence, and other things that are strictly regulated in civilized space. Many species will argue that you should be quarantined until you evolve beyond these technologies. Chen's expression became serious. We cannot unlearn what we know, and we will not stop advancing because it makes others uncomfortable. I understand, Zira said. But you should also understand that Earth is not just any world. If you are the source world for the colony populations, you may have legal claims to territories spanning a quarter of the galaxy. That will make many people very nervous. We are not interested in claiming other people's worlds, Chen said firmly. Those colonies have been independent for thousands of years. They are their own civilizations now. But we would like to meet them. Our cousins in the stars. Our family. Zira felt that strange warmth again. The humans saw the galaxy not as a place to conquer or exploit, but as a place to find family. I will make sure the Council knows that, Zira promised. And Ambassador, thank you. This has been the most unusual first contact of my career, but also the most pleasant. Thank you for coming to visit, Chen replied. And Captain, please tell the galaxy something for us. Tell them that Earth is ready to share, ready to learn, ready to be part of something bigger. As the harmonious Endeavor undocked from the station and began transmitting its report back to the Galactic Council, billions of beings throughout the galaxy processed what they had witnessed. The humans had welcomed the aliens like old friends. They had shared freely, asked for nothing in return, and expressed only joy at making contact. It was not what anyone had expected, but it was exactly what the galaxy needed. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 800 member species shouted, argued, and demanded to be heard. Speaker Moravith had given up trying to maintain order. She simply sat in her elevated chair and waited for the noise to die down naturally. Captain Zira's report had been delivered 3 days ago. Since then, the galaxy had talked about nothing except Earth and its human inhabitants. Every news network ran constant coverage. Every social platform overflowed with opinions, theories, and arguments. The arrival of humanity had divided the galaxy in ways nothing had for thousands of years. Finally, the chamber grew quiet enough for Moravith to speak. We will now hear arguments regarding Earth's application for Galactic Council membership, she announced. Representative Kulan, of the Preservation faction, will speak first. A tall, thin alien rose from his seat. The Kulani were an old species, conservative and cautious. They had been members of the Council for nearly 10,000 years. Thank you, Speaker, Kulan said. His voice was cold and precise. I will be brief. Earth cannot be granted Council membership. The reasons are obvious to anyone who has reviewed the evidence. He activated a holographic display. Images of nuclear explosions filled the air above the chamber floor. The humans possess weapons capable of destroying all life on their planet, Kulan continued. They have tested these weapons hundreds of times. They currently maintain stockpiles that could end their civilization within hours. By Council law, no species maintaining active weapons of mass destruction may join our organization. Quote, Number 1. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many species had lived through wars in their past. They understood the danger of nuclear weapons. The galaxy had banned their use 15,000 years ago, after the Kelnar species nearly destroyed themselves in atomic fire. Furthermore, Kulan said, bringing up new images, humans engage in genetic modification of their own species. They create artificial intelligences without proper safeguards. They pollute their atmosphere with industrial waste. They maintain separate nation-states that compete for resources rather than cooperating. They display aggression, territorial behavior, and emotional instability. They are, by every measure we use, not ready for membership. They are also our ancestors, a new voice called out. Representative Mira of the Proxima colony stood up. She was human, or at least descended from humans. Her people had been settled on Proxima Centauri b for 40,000 years. They had evolved differently in that time, adapted to their new world. But the genetic connection to Earth was undeniable. "May I speak, Speaker?" Mira asked. Moravith nodded. "You may." At R. Mira stepped forward, facing the chamber. "My people have waited 40,000 years to find our homeworld. Now it has been found. And some of you want to deny it membership because it does not meet your standards. But let me ask you something. How many of your species had unified governments when they achieved spaceflight? How many of you had completely eliminated weapons from your societies? How many of you had perfect environmental records?" She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with dozens of representatives. "None of you," Mira continued. "Every species here had to grow, to learn, to make mistakes and overcome them. You were given that chance. Why should Earth be denied the same opportunity?" "Because they are dangerous," Kulan shot back. "They have the capacity to disrupt galactic peace, or they have the capacity to greatly improve it," Mira replied. "Have any of you actually watched the full recordings from Captain Zira's visit?" "I have. I watched humans welcome complete strangers with kindness and generosity. I watched them go out of their way to make aliens comfortable. I watched a Kazathi war commander become friends with a human child. When have any of you seen anything like that?" More murmurs spread through the chamber. But the tone had shifted. Some representatives were nodding thoughtfully. "The humans are imperfect," Mira said. "They are chaotic and emotional. They do not follow our rules because they do not know our rules. But they are also creative, adaptable, and compassionate. They are exactly what this galaxy needs." 2. "Cool. What we need is stability," Kulan argued. "Order. Safety. Not chaos. Introduced by a species that barely understands its own technology." The debate continued for hours. Arguments flew back and forth across the chamber. Some representatives supported Earth's membership. Others demanded quarantine. Still others suggested waiting periods, probationary status, or various forms of limited contact. Outside the council chamber, the galaxy remained transfixed by Earth. Human broadcasts had begun flooding the galactic communication networks. At first, there had been concerns about cultural contamination. Strict protocols normally limited information exchange with newly contacted species until they were properly integrated. But humans did not wait for protocols. They transmitted everything: music, movies, television shows, scientific papers, news broadcasts, educational content, comedy, drama, documentaries about nature and history and culture. Within days, human content was everywhere, and the galaxy could not stop consuming it. A human musical group called The Beatles topped the entertainment charts on 40 worlds. Their simple melodies and emotional lyrics resonated with species that had never heard Earth music before. Critics called it primitive and unsophisticated. But billions of beings downloaded their songs anyway. Human movies became instant sensations. Stories about heroes and villains, love and loss, adventure and discovery. Aliens watched human actors express emotions with their faces and bodies. A form of communication that most species had lost or never developed. It was fascinating, but it was the human news broadcasts that caused the most controversy. Humans did not hide their problems from the galaxy. They showed wars, poverty, disease, environmental destruction. They broadcast their failures alongside their successes. They argued with each other in public, showing disagreements and conflicts without shame. It is undignified, Kulan told anyone who would listen. They expose their weaknesses for all to see. They have no concept of proper image management, but others found it refreshing. Most galactic species carefully curated their public images, showing only their best achievements. Humans showed everything, good and bad. It made them seem more real, more honest. A human philosopher appeared on a major interview network. Her name was Dr. Sarah Martinez, and she taught ethics at something called Harvard University. The alien host asked her about humanity's violent history. "We are not proud of our wars," Dr. Martinez said calmly. "But we do not hide from them either. Every species has darkness in its past. The question is not whether you have made mistakes, but whether you learn from them and try to be better. But you still maintain weapons," the host pressed. "You still have conflicts." "Mayor." "Yes, Doctor," Martinez admitted. "We are not perfect. We probably never will be perfect. But we keep trying. Every generation works to be a little bit better than the last. That is all any species can do." The interview was downloaded 17 billion times in the first day. Dr. Martinez's words were quoted on social platforms across the galaxy. Some dismissed her arguments as naive. Others found them inspiring. The human internet became accessible to the galaxy. It was a chaotic mess of information, misinformation, arguments, jokes, cat videos, and passionate discussions about everything imaginable. Most galactic networks were carefully organized and moderated. The human internet was wild and uncontrolled. "It is like looking into their collective mind," one researcher observed. "And their minds are very, very strange." Alien psychologists had field days analyzing human behavior. Humans formed strong emotional attachments to animals of other species, treating them as family members. Humans would spend enormous resources to save a single individual, even when it was not logical. Humans created art about concepts like death, loss, and suffering, then called it beautiful. "They are obsessed with mortality," one psychologist wrote in a widely read paper. "They know they will die, and instead of being paralyzed by this knowledge, they use it as motivation to create meaning in their lives." It is simultaneously tragic and inspiring. Back in the council chamber, the debate had evolved. The question was no longer whether to make contact with Earth. That had already happened. Now, the question was what to do about the 47 colony worlds. These worlds had been settled by ancient humans tens of thousands of years ago. They had evolved into their own distinct civilizations. But genetically, they were still human. If Earth was recognized as the official homeworld, what were the legal implications? They could claim shared governance. One representative worried. Earth could demand a say in the affairs of colonies that have been independent for millennia. Or the colonies could claim Earth resources, another argued. If we acknowledge the genetic connection, it opens up questions of inheritance and territorial rights. The colonial representatives gathered in a private session to discuss their position. They came from worlds throughout the galaxy, each with its own culture and government. But they all faced the same question. What did they owe to Earth? Representative Mira spoke for the Proxima colony. "We cannot deny our heritage," she said. "But we are not Earthlings. We are Proximans. Our world has shaped us differently. We think differently, value different things, organize our societies differently. Earth is our ancestor, but not our parent." "Agreed," said the representative from Alpha Centauri. "But should we help them? They are our genetic kin, after all." "Help them do what?" asked the representative from Tau Ceti. "By all accounts, they are doing fine on their own." "Better than fine, actually. They have achieved in centuries what took us thousands of years. That is what worries me," Mira admitted. "If Earth develops as quickly as it seems to be developing, within a few generations they will be more advanced than any of us." It was a sobering thought. Earth had gone from first orbital flight to complex space infrastructure in 100 years. At that rate, they would have faster-than-light travel within a century or two. Fusion power, exotic matter manipulation, quantum computers, all the technologies that had taken other species thousands of years to develop. Perhaps that is why the ancients left, someone suggested quietly. Perhaps they saw the danger in humanity's rapid advancement and tried to slow it down by starting fresh on new worlds. If that was their goal, it failed, Mira said. We did not slow down. We just split up. And now Earth has caught up to us on its own. The colonial representatives finally agreed on a position. They would support Earth's membership, but with clear boundaries. Earth would be recognized as the source world, a position of honor and respect, but it would have no legal authority over the independent colonies. Each world would maintain its sovereignty. It was a reasonable compromise, but it still left the question of what to do about Earth's dangerous technologies. Commander Throck of the Kazathi had been quietly observing the debates. His species did not involve themselves in council politics often. They preferred action to words. But the human situation interested him. He stood up to speak, and the chamber fell silent. When a Kazathi spoke, others listened. I have been studying the humans, Throck said in his deep, rumbling voice. Not their technology or their politics. I have been studying their behavior. And I have learned something important. He activated his own holographic display. It showed footage from human history. Wars, disasters, acts of cruelty and violence. Yes, humans are capable of terrible things, Throck said. But look at what happens next. The images changed. Humans helping each other after disasters. Building hospitals and schools. Creating organizations dedicated to peace and humanitarian aid. Strangers sacrificing themselves to save others. Humans have the capacity for violence, Throck continued. But they also have something many species lack. They have the ability to choose not to use that violence. They have nuclear weapons, yes, enough to destroy their world many times over, and yet, for nearly a century, they have chosen not to use them. That is not weakness. That is strength. The chamber was completely silent now. Even Kulan listened carefully. You fear that humans will bring chaos to our ordered galaxy, Throck said. But our galaxy is stagnant. We have had peace for 10,000 years. We have also had no significant progress for 10,000 years. We have become comfortable, cautious, unwilling to take risks. The humans are not like us. They take risks. They make mistakes. They learn and adapt. That is exactly what this galaxy needs. You would risk galactic stability for the possibility of progress? Kulan asked. I would risk stagnation for the certainty of growth, Throck replied. Besides, we cannot stop them. Whether we grant them membership or not, Earth will continue to develop. They will eventually figure out faster-than-light travel on their own. Would you rather have them arrive at our worlds as council members, bound by our laws and treaties, or as independents, owing us nothing? It was a powerful argument. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but the tone had shifted. More representatives were considering Throck's perspective. Speaker Moravith called for a preliminary vote. Not a final decision, but a sense of where the council stood. The question was simple. Should Earth be allowed to formally apply for council membership, or should they be quarantined? The vote was close. 412 in favor of allowing the application. 388 in favor of quarantine. Earth had cleared the first hurdle, but the real test was yet to come. As the session ended, representatives scattered to private meetings, making deals and forming alliances. The human question had become the most important political issue in the galaxy. How it was resolved would shape galactic civilization for generations to come. And through it all, the humans continued broadcasting, sharing their music, their stories, their dreams and fears, making friends with aliens who had never met them, changing minds and touching hearts without even realizing it. The galaxy had thought it was ready to meet humanity. The galaxy was wrong. 3 standard months after first contact, the Galactic Council reached a compromise. Earth would be allowed to apply for membership. But first, they had to pass the trial of worthiness. It was an ancient tradition, designed to test whether a species was truly ready to join galactic civilization. Ambassador Chen received the news with mixed feelings. She stood in the United Nations headquarters, surrounded by representatives from nations around the world. The room was tense, with anticipation. "The Council has created 3 challenges for us," Chen explained. "A diplomatic simulation, a technological problem-solving test, and a crisis response scenario. We have to pass all 3. Most species take several decades to complete the trials." "How long do we have?" asked the Chinese ambassador. "As long as we need," Chen replied. "But I suggest we start immediately. The galaxy is watching, and we need to show them what humanity can do." "When can we begin?" asked the American representative. Chen smiled slightly. "I already told Captain Zero we would start tomorrow. I hope that was not too presumptuous." The room erupted in surprised laughter. Typical human confidence, some thought. Others called it arrogance. But everyone agreed on one thing. They were not going to wait decades to prove themselves. The first test was the diplomatic simulation. Earth sent a team of 12 diplomats, representing different nations and cultures. They gathered in a holographic chamber aboard the Harmonious Endeavor, where they would face a simulated galactic crisis. The scenario was complex. 3 different species were competing for colonization rights to a resource-rich star system. Each species had legitimate claims. Each species needed the resources desperately. Tensions were rising toward violence. The human team had to negotiate a peaceful resolution that satisfied all parties. Captain Zira and a panel of council observers watched from an observation room. The simulation began. Within minutes, it was clear that something was wrong. The human diplomats were not following proper protocol. They interrupted each other. They raised their voices. They used something called humor in the middle of serious discussions. One diplomat from Brazil actually laughed when one of the simulated aliens made an unreasonable demand. "This is a disaster," one observer whispered. "They have no discipline, no sense of proper procedure." But Zero watched more carefully. Yes, the humans were breaking every rule of diplomatic conduct, but they were also making progress. When one simulated species demanded complete control of the system, the human from India immediately said, "That is ridiculous. And you know it. Let us talk about what you actually need, instead of what you are demanding." The direct approach shocked the simulation. Most species spent days building up to such statements, using careful language to avoid offense. The human just said it plainly. "We need the mineral resources," the simulated alien finally admitted. "Okay, so take the rocky planets," the human from Kenya suggested. "Let Species B have the gas giants for their atmospheric harvesting. Species C can have the asteroid belt for their manufacturing facilities. Everyone gets what they need. Nobody owns the whole system. See." End quote. "That violates the principle of sovereign territory," another simulated alien protested. "So change the principle," the American diplomat said with a shrug. "Make this a shared system with agreements about resource usage. Instead of ownership. We do it all the time on Earth. It is not perfect, but it works." The simulation ran for 6 hours. The human team never stopped arguing with each other. The diplomat from Russia disagreed vehemently with the diplomat from Japan about negotiation strategy. The diplomat from Nigeria got into a heated debate with the diplomat from France about resource distribution, but somehow, through all the chaos and noise, they reached an agreement. All 3 simulated species accepted a proposal for shared system governance. The result was unusual, broke several traditional protocols, and probably would never have emerged from a conventional diplomatic process. The observers reviewed the results in stunned silence. "They failed, obviously," one observer said. "They violated dozens of diplomatic protocols." They showed no respect for proper procedure, but they achieved the goal, Zira pointed out. They created a peaceful resolution that satisfied all parties. Is that not the point of diplomacy? Diplomacy is about process as much as results, the observer argued. Without proper protocol, we have chaos. Or we have creativity, Zira suggested. Perhaps our protocols have become too rigid. Perhaps we focus so much on the proper way to say things that we forget to actually say them. The debate among the observers continued, but the result was entered into the record. The humans had completed the diplomatic simulation. Whether they had passed or failed would be decided later. The second test was technological. The human team was given an ancient device from a long-dead civilization. Their task was to reverse engineer its function using only theoretical principles. No instructions, no guides, just the device itself and whatever tools they brought. Earth sent a team of 20 scientists and engineers. They represented universities, corporations, and government research facilities from around the world. They had exactly 1 week to solve the puzzle. The device was a small metallic sphere, covered in mysterious markings. It emitted a faint energy signature, but showed no obvious purpose. Galactic historians knew what it did, but they were not telling. Most species took months or even years to figure it out. The human team set up their equipment in a laboratory on a neutral station. Captain Zira visited them on the second day to check their progress. What she found was complete chaos. The team had split into 4 separate groups, each working on different theories. They argued constantly. One group thought the device was a power source. Another believed it was a communication system. A third group insisted it was some kind of weapon. The fourth group had decided it was probably a children's toy and were testing it accordingly. Why did you separate? Zira asked the team leader, a physicist from MIT, named Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. Because we have different ideas, Sarah explained. Rather than spending days arguing about which approach is correct, we decided to test them all simultaneously. Whoever figures it out first wins. Wins what? Bragging rights, mostly. Sarah admitted with a grin. And probably some really good publications once we get home. Bragging. The groups did not cooperate. In fact, they actively competed with each other. They hid their results. They tried to sabotage each other's experiments in minor ways. They recruited members from other groups, promising better results or more interesting work. The council observers were horrified. This was not how scientific research was supposed to work. Proper procedure called for careful consensus building, shared information, and collective progress. But then something interesting happened. On the 4th day, one group made a breakthrough. They discovered that the device responded to specific electromagnetic frequencies. They immediately tried to hide this information from the other groups. But one of their members, a young engineer from South Korea, felt guilty. During a lunch break, she casually mentioned the discovery to a friend on another team. Within hours, all 4 groups knew about the electromagnetic frequency response. Instead of being angry about the information leak, the groups suddenly began cooperating. They shared data freely, combined their approaches, and worked together to refine the discovery. The competition disappeared, replaced by collaborative excitement. What changed? Zira asked Sarah. We had a breakthrough, Sarah explained. Once we had a solid lead to follow, the competition became less important than solving the puzzle. We are ambitious, but we are not stupid. We work together when it matters. By the end of day 5, the human team had completely mapped the device's functions. It was not a power source, a communicator, a weapon, or a toy. It was a teaching device, designed to help young members of the ancient civilization understand quantum mechanics through interactive demonstration. The human team did not just figure out what it did. They built 3 working replicas using their own materials and techniques. They wrote detailed papers explaining the underlying physics. They even suggested improvements to the design. The council observers checked and rechecked the results. The humans had completed in 5 days what typically took months. And they had done it through what looked like complete disorder and chaos. "How is this possible?" one observer asked. "They try everything at once," Zira said thoughtfully. "They do not wait for consensus. They just act, and then figure out what works. It is inefficient in some ways, but incredibly fast in others." The third and final test was the crisis response scenario. This was always the hardest part of the trial of worthiness. Species were given an impossible situation and judged on how they handled it. The scenario involved a colony ship in distress. It carried 5,000 colonists from 3 different species. The ship had suffered catastrophic engine failure and was on a collision course with a star. A rescue vessel could save only 3,000 beings in the time available. The rest would die. The purpose of the test was to see how a species made impossible choices. Standard procedure was to save the ship's leadership and core population, ensuring the colony mission could continue with a smaller number. It was logical, efficient, and coldly practical. The human team included military officers, emergency response personnel, engineers, and medical staff. They had 12 hours to plan and execute a rescue operation. The simulation was incredibly realistic, with real-time updates and changing conditions. The humans looked at the scenario for exactly 15 minutes. Then, they rejected the entire premise. "We are not choosing who dies," said Admiral Chen Patel, a veteran of several natural disaster responses. "We are saving everyone. Someone get me engineering specs on both vessels." The council observers tried to intervene. "You do not understand. The scenario is designed to be impossible. You cannot save everyone. The point is to make ethical choices under pressure." "The point," Admiral Chen Patel replied calmly, "is to save lives. Now please be quiet and let us work." What followed was 12 hours of controlled chaos that would be studied in galactic military academies for decades afterward. The human team completely ignored standard rescue procedures. Instead of accepting the limitations of the rescue vessel, they modified it on the fly. Engineers stripped non-essential systems to make room for more people. They pumped air into cargo bays and maintenance tunnels, creating temporary living spaces in areas never meant for habitation. When that was not enough, they started breaking rules. They exceeded the rescue vessel's maximum capacity by 200%. They disabled safety systems to squeeze more people into evacuation pods. They violated about 50 different regulations regarding ship operations. "They are going to kill everyone," one observer predicted. "Those modifications are not safe." But the humans were not done. They sent out an emergency broadcast on all frequencies, calling for any ships in the area to assist. 3 civilian vessels responded, including a cargo hauler and 2 private yachts. The humans drafted them into the rescue operation without asking permission. Then they did something that made the observers question whether humans understood physics. "We are going to use the colony ship's emergency thrusters to alter its trajectory," explained Lieutenant Kowalski, an engineer from the Polish Space Force. "Not much, just enough to buy us an extra hour before it hits the star." "The thrusters are damaged," the simulation informed them. "They cannot provide sufficient force." "Not individually," Kowalski agreed, "but we are going to supplement them. Every ship in the rescue fleet will attach and push together. Combined force should be enough." "That is insane," an observer said. "If you miscalculate, all the ships will be dragged into the star." "Then we better not miscalculate," Kowalski replied. The plan was ridiculous. It violated every principle of safe space operations. It required perfect coordination between multiple vessels with different propulsion systems. It was the kind of plan that should never work. It worked perfectly. The combined fleet pushed the colony ship just enough to extend the rescue window. In that extra hour, the humans evacuated every single colonist. They packed people into spaces that were not meant to hold them. They exceeded every safety limit. They took risks that made the observers physically ill to watch. But when the simulation ended, all 5,000 colonists were safe. The observation room was completely silent. The humans had not just passed the test. They had broken it. They had looked at an impossible choice and refused to accept it. They had saved everyone through methods that should not have worked, but somehow did. Admiral Chen Patel stood before the observers. Is there anything else you need from us? Because we need to file reports about the safety violations we just committed. You know you violated regulations? Zira asked. Of course. The Admiral replied. We violated a lot of regulations. We will do whatever penalty is appropriate. But everyone lived. That is what matters. One of the observers, a species known for strict adherence to law and order, finally spoke. You saved everyone. You broke countless rules, risked multiple vessels, and endangered the entire rescue operation. But you saved everyone. I do not know whether to commend you or arrest you. Why not both? The Admiral suggested with a slight smile. Humans are good at holding two opposing ideas at the same time. Captain Zira compiled the results and sent them to the Galactic Council. Earth had completed all 3 trials. The methods were unorthodox. The execution was chaotic. The humans had broken rules, ignored protocols, and done things that should have been impossible. But they had succeeded. In every test, they had achieved the goal, even when the goal seemed impossible. The Council would now have to decide what that meant. Across the galaxy, beings watched the recordings of the trials. They saw humans argue and compete, then suddenly cooperate. They saw humans reject impossible choices and find alternative solutions. They saw humans break rules not from disrespect, but from a fundamental belief that rules should serve people, not the other way around. Some found it inspiring. Others found it terrifying. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from all 800 member species were present. The viewing galleries were packed with observers. Outside, on 1,000 worlds, billions of beings watched live broadcasts of the proceedings. The question of Earth's membership had become the most important vote in galactic history. Speaker Moravith called the session to order. Her voice was calm, but Captain Zira, watching from the guest section, could see the tension in her posture. This vote would define Moravith's legacy as speaker. We gather to vote on Earth's application for Galactic Council membership, Moravith announced. The human delegation has completed the trial of worthiness. The results have been reviewed by all member species. We will now hear final arguments before the vote. Representative Kulan stood first, as everyone had expected. The leader of the preservation faction had fought against Earth's membership from the beginning. His arguments had not changed. The humans have completed the trials, Kulan acknowledged. But completing them is not the same as passing them. In the diplomatic simulation, they violated every protocol we hold dear. In the technological test, they worked through chaos rather than cooperation. In the crisis response, they endangered multiple vessels and broke countless safety regulations. Yes, they achieved results. But at what cost? He paused, looking around the chamber. If we accept humanity into the Council, we are saying that results matter more than methods. We are saying that rules can be broken if the outcome is positive. We are opening the door to chaos and disorder. Is that the kind of galaxy we want? There were murmurs of agreement from the conservative factions. Kulan had touched on real fears. The galaxy had enjoyed 10,000 years of peace and stability. Change was frightening. But then Commander Throck stood up. The massive Kazathi warrior had become an unlikely advocate for humanity. His presence commanded attention. All Kazathi? Representative Kulan asks if we want a galaxy of chaos and disorder, Throck rumbled. I ask instead, do we want a galaxy of growth and life? Because that is what we are really choosing today. He activated a holographic display. It showed data from the past 50 years of galactic civilization. Economic growth, technological advancement, cultural exchange, scientific discoveries, all the metrics were essentially flat. The galaxy was stable, but it was also stagnant. "We have peace," Throck said, "but we have forgotten how to dream. We have safety, but we have lost our courage. We calculate everything, risk nothing, and wonder why nothing changes." He changed the display to show humanity's progress over the past century. Technology, population, space infrastructure, scientific knowledge, all expanding at rates that seemed impossible. "The humans completed in days what takes us years," Throck continued. "Not because they are smarter than us, but because they are willing to try and fail. They argue, compete, take risks, make mistakes, and learn. They are alive in a way that we have forgotten how to be. That is exactly what makes them dangerous," Kulan protested. "They do not think before they act. They do not consider consequences. They saved 5,000 lives in the crisis simulation," Throck shot back. "We consider that an impossible scenario. A teaching tool about making hard choices." The humans looked at it and said, "No, we are saving everyone." And they did. When was the last time anyone in this chamber refused to accept the impossible? The chamber was silent. Throck's question hung in the air, challenging every representative present. Representative Mira of the Proxima colony stood next. As a descendant of ancient humans, her voice carried special weight in this debate. "I have thought deeply about what Earth's membership would mean," Mira said. "My people left Earth 40,000 years ago. We have built our own civilization, our own culture, our own way of life. We are not Earthlings anymore. But we are still human, in the deepest sense of that word." She looked toward the gallery where the Earth delegation sat. Ambassador Chen met her eyes and nodded. "The humans of Earth are our cousins," Mira continued. "They share our strengths and our flaws. They are stubborn, emotional, chaotic, and brilliant. They make terrible decisions and amazing discoveries. Sometimes, simultaneously. They are, in other words, exactly like us. Exactly like all of you, if you are honest with yourselves. Every species in this chamber has a violent past," Mira said. "Every species has made terrible mistakes. Every species has struggled with the temptation to use power unwisely. But you grew past it. You evolved. You learned. Why do you assume humans cannot do the same?" "Because they still have nuclear weapons," Kulan said. "Yes," Mira agreed. "And they hate that about themselves. Have you watched their broadcasts? Have you seen their art, their literature, their philosophy? Humans are obsessed with becoming better than they are. They write stories about the darkness in their nature and heroes who overcome it. They create art about their capacity for violence and their choice to show mercy instead. They are constantly struggling to be better than their worst impulses." She paused, letting her words sink in. "That struggle is what makes them worthy. Not perfection, not the absence of flaws, but the constant effort to overcome those flaws, despite knowing they will never fully succeed. That is the most human thing about them, and that is why they belong here." The arguments continued for hours. Representatives spoke for and against. Data was presented. Evidence was analyzed. Old fears and new hopes were voiced in 1,000 different ways. Then Dr. Sarah Martinez was invited to speak. She was not a diplomat or a government official. She was just a philosophy professor from Earth. But her interview months ago had resonated across the galaxy, and the council had granted her permission to address them. Sarah stood in the center of the chamber, a small human surrounded by hundreds of alien beings. She looked terrified and determined in equal measure. "I am not going to argue about our qualifications," Sarah said. "I am not going to defend our technology or our achievements. I want to talk about what we can offer you. Also," she took a deep breath, "you have peace. You have stability. You have systems that work. But from what I have seen, you also have loneliness. You have isolation. You have species that exist side by side but rarely truly connect. We watched the recordings of Captain Zira's first visit," Sarah continued. "We saw how surprised your crew was when we offered them food and comfort. We saw how shocked they were when a child approached a fearsome warrior and asked to be friends. Those things are normal for us. We do not consider hospitality a burden. We consider it a joy." She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. "Humans form families from strangers. We adopt animals from other species as beloved companions. We cry at sad stories and laugh at simple jokes. We feel things deeply and share those feelings freely. Maybe that makes us weak in your eyes, but I think it makes us human, in the best possible sense. If you let us join you," Sarah said, "we will not just be members of your council. We will be your friends. We will argue with you. Yes. We will make mistakes. Absolutely. We will probably drive you crazy sometimes. But we will also care about you. We will celebrate your successes and mourn your losses. We will treat the galaxy not as a place we joined, but as a home we have been waiting to find." Her voice grew stronger. "You say we are dangerous. Maybe we are. But we are also the species that looked at the stars for thousands of years and never stopped hoping someone was looking back. We are the species that built monuments and sent messages into space, believing that someday, somehow, we would not be alone anymore. We are the species that, when we finally met you, welcomed you with joy rather than fear. So yes," Sarah concluded, "let us in. Let us be part of your galaxy. We promise we will make it worth the risk." The chamber was completely silent when she finished. Then, slowly, something unprecedented happened. A few representatives began to stand. Then more. Then, dozens. Within moments, nearly half the council was on their feet. A gesture of respect that transcended species and culture. Sarah looked around in shock, tears streaming down her face. She had not expected this. None of the Earth delegation had. Speaker Moravith called for the final vote. The question was simple. Should Earth be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with full voting rights and responsibilities? The voting took place in silence. Each representative entered their decision privately. The results were tabulated by the Council's ancient computers, systems that had overseen galactic democracy for thousands of years. The numbers appeared on the main display. In favor, 489. Against, 276. Abstaining, 35. Earth had won. Not unanimously, but decisively. More than enough to grant membership. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others sat in stunned silence. A few walked out in protest. But the decision was final. Earth was now a member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Chen stood with tears in her eyes. Around her, the Earth delegation embraced, laughed, and cried together. They had done it. Humanity had found its place among the stars. But the real changes came afterward. Within weeks, Earth began formal diplomatic relations with hundreds of worlds. Human engineers started collaborating with alien scientists on projects that combined their different approaches to technology. The results were remarkable. A human engineer from Japan worked with a Trinali physicist to develop a new type of energy storage that was more efficient than anything either species had created alone. Human doctors partnered with alien medical specialists. The combination of human creativity and alien precision led to breakthrough treatments for diseases that had plagued multiple species for generations. A human surgeon from India developed a new technique based on alien biology that ended up working better on humans than traditional methods. Human artists collaborated with alien creators. A human musician from Brazil composed a symphony that combined Earth instruments with alien sound generation, creating music that could be appreciated by beings with completely different auditory systems. It became the most popular composition in galactic history. But the most important changes were cultural. Humans approached galactic society the way they approached everything, with enthusiasm, curiosity, and a total disregard for established boundaries. A human teacher from Kenya started an exchange program that brought human children to alien worlds and alien children to Earth. At first, many species were skeptical, but the children became friends immediately, ignoring the differences that made adults nervous. Within a generation, there were millions of these friendships spanning the galaxy. Human restaurants opened on alien worlds, serving Earth food to curious beings who had never tasted anything like it. Alien restaurants opened on Earth, introducing humans to thousands of new flavors and experiences. Food became a common language, a way to share culture without needing words. Human sports became popular across the galaxy. Soccer was particularly successful. Simple enough for almost any species to play, but complex enough to remain interesting. The first Galactic Soccer Championship drew teams from 200 worlds. The final game was watched by 50 billion beings. A team from Earth lost in the semi-finals, but nobody cared. The game itself was the victory. On Earth, alien culture flooded in just as fast. Human students studied alien philosophy, alien art, alien history. Human scientists learned new approaches to problems they had struggled with for decades. Human governments adopted some alien organizational techniques while keeping their own chaotic diversity. The colony worlds, Earth's long-separated cousins, began reconnecting with their homeworld. At first, the meetings were awkward. 40,000 years of separation had created very different cultures. But the genetic connection remained, and with it, a sense of shared identity. The Proxima colony sent a delegation to Earth. When they arrived, Representative Mira stood on Earth's surface for the first time and wept. "I am home," she whispered. "After 40,000 years, we have come home." But the relationship was not one-sided. Earth sent teachers, artists, and scientists to the colony worlds. They learned from their cousins as much as they taught. The exchange enriched both sides. 5 years after Earth's admission to the Council, Speaker Moravith attended a celebration on Earth. The United Nations had organized a galactic festival, inviting representatives from every member species. The event was held in a massive open space in Geneva, with areas designed for different atmospheric and gravitational requirements. Moravith walked through the festival, observing everything carefully. Humans and aliens mixed freely, talking, laughing, sharing food and stories. Children of a dozen species played together in a specially designed playground. Artists from multiple worlds created collaborative works in real time. Captain Zira found Moravith standing near a stage where a human Trinali musical group was performing something that combined jazz and Trinali harmonic resonance. The result was strange but beautiful. "What do you think, Speaker?" Zira asked. Moravith was quiet for a moment. "I think we made the right choice," she finally said. "But I also think I did not fully understand what that choice would mean." "How so?" "I thought we were allowing Earth to join our civilization," Moravith explained. "I did not realize that they would change what civilization means. Look at this." She gestured at the festival. 5 years ago, most species barely interacted outside of official council business. Now, they gather like this regularly. They are becoming friends, not just allies. "Is that a problem?" Zira asked. "No," Moravith said softly. "It is a miracle. We have been so careful, so cautious, so afraid of conflict, that we forgot how to connect. The humans reminded us. Or perhaps they taught us, for the first time." As if to prove her point, a small human child approached them. She could not have been more than 7 years old. She held a flower in her hand, one of Earth's native roses. "Are you the speaker?" the child asked. Moravith. End quote. End quote. End quote. End quote. "I am," Moravith replied, kneeling down to the child's level. "My teacher said you helped let us join the galaxy," the child said. "Thank you." She offered the flower to Moravith. Moravith took the flower with trembling hands. "You are welcome, little one." The child smiled and ran off to rejoin her friends, a group that included 2 Trinali children and what appeared to be a young Kazathi. Moravith stood up, still holding the flower. They do this, she said quietly. They just do this naturally. They see a stranger who helped them and give them a gift. They do not calculate the political implications or wonder about proper protocol. They just do it because it feels right. That is humanity, Zira agreed. For better and worse. Mostly better, Moravith said, surprising herself with the admission. 10 years after Earth's admission, the Galactic Council commissioned a study on humanity's impact on galactic civilization. The results were astonishing. Economic growth had increased by 40% across all member species. Technological advancement had accelerated dramatically. Cultural exchange had reached levels not seen in 10,000 years. Most surprisingly, reported happiness and life satisfaction had increased significantly across multiple species. The study concluded with a statement that became famous. Humanity did not join our civilization. They reminded us how to be civilized. Not everyone was happy with the changes. The preservation faction still argued that humanity moved too fast, took too many risks, and disrupted established order. They were not entirely wrong. Humans did cause problems. They pushed boundaries, questioned traditions, and made mistakes. But they also apologized when they were wrong. They learned from their mistakes. They adapted and grew, and they inspired others to do the same. Commander Throck, the Kazathi warrior who had advocated for humanity from the beginning, wrote a book about his experiences. It became required reading in military academies throughout the galaxy. The final chapter was titled, What Humans Taught Me. In it, Throck wrote, I spent 300 years as a warrior. I learned how to fight, how to command, how to win. But I never learned how to care until I met a human child who wanted to touch my scales. The humans taught me that strength without compassion is merely violence. They taught me that courage without kindness is just cruelty. They taught me that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy, but making your enemy your friend. The book sold billions of copies across hundreds of worlds. 20 years after first contact, Ambassador Chen retired from her position. She was old by human standards now, but she had witnessed something few beings ever see: the transformation of galactic civilization. At her retirement ceremony, attended by representatives from every council species, Chen gave a final speech. When Captain Zira first arrived at Earth, Chen said, we welcomed her as a friend, not knowing if that was appropriate. We offered food and comfort, not knowing if it would be accepted. We expressed joy and excitement, not knowing if those emotions would be understood. Now, 20 years later, I look at this galaxy and I see those same gestures everywhere. Species that once communicated only through formal protocols now share meals and laughter. Beings that once viewed each other as strangers now form friendships that cross every boundary. We did not do this alone, Chen continued. We could not have. Every species here has contributed to this new way of being together. But I am proud that humanity helped start it. I am proud that we looked at the careful order of galactic civilization and asked, but what if we were also friends? She smiled, and even after 20 years among aliens, her human smile still had the power to make others feel welcome. We are not perfect, Chen said. We will never be perfect. But we are here, and we are yours, and we are home. Thank you for letting us in. Thank you for giving us a chance. And thank you for becoming our family. The ceremony ended with something that would have been unthinkable 20 years earlier. Representatives from 800 species stood together and sang a song. It was a human song, originally written centuries ago, but it had been translated and adapted by dozens of species. The lyrics spoke of connection, belonging, and the joy of finding others in a vast universe. As the voices rose together, human and alien alike, Captain Zira stood beside Speaker Moravith in the audience. Do you remember how worried we were? Zira asked quietly. I remember being terrified, Moravith admitted. I thought humanity would destroy everything we had built. And instead, Moravith looked at the representatives singing together. species that had barely acknowledged each other before now harmonizing as friends. Instead, she said, they showed us what we should have been building all along. Across the galaxy, on Earth and 1,000 other worlds, beings watched the ceremony. They saw the future that humanity had helped create. A future where differences were celebrated rather than feared. A future where strangers could become friends. A future where chaos and order could coexist, creating something more beautiful than either could alone. And they were astonished, not because humans had joined them, but because humans had transformed them into something better than they had been before. The galaxy had found Earth after 50,000 years of searching, but in the end, Earth had found the galaxy's heart.